Recording in progress. All right, thanks everyone for joining me. I just wanted to cover some basics on some stuff that I'm doing to give you an idea about what I'm looking at to begin with. Where's my sharing thing? So this is what I'm going for. This is a extant piece from about 10th or 11th century Iran. This is gilded fabric, presumably linen, and it looks like it has some block printing on there as well. You'll notice that there's this block and there's the gilded fabric and the gilded space in the middle, and then in these white spaces, there's gilding there as well. And so that's gold leaf on the fabric. For what we're doing, I'm not doing the white spaces. I'm just doing the gilding on the black spaces here. And so I'm taking this as an example, and I'm doing this. I'm doing the underdresses for Timur and Tiana's coronation outfits coming up here, because I wanted to be able to. I mean, I've been doing gilded fabric for a while, and this is going to be quite a bit. But having seen this example here, I just thought it'd be really, really cool to make their undertunics with this. So that's basically what we're going for. And so this is going to involve the block printing to get the black spaces on, and then the gilding to put the gold leaf on those spaces as well. So that's the inspiration for this whole thing. And I've got Prax and I've got Sanda over here that are helping with this. And I'm gonna take this bit that Sanda's working on real quick. Can I grab that?
Yep.
The pattern that I'm using for this is rectangular construction. But this is basically hang on. Get the camera up. So that's basically what it's going to look like. So this is one of the side gores for Tiana's dress, and you can see you've got the block print there. And so the original was had lions in the middle of it, and the digital image that we have for that, Tariq down in Aidenvelt, George, he had made he has a whole library of digital images that you can use for creating fabric stance out of lino. My thanks to Morgan for pointing me towards that. So George had made this digital image based on the extant piece that I just showed you, and I had one of my Photoshop people put a griffin in the middle of it instead of the lions in there. So that's what you can see here. And I don't know if you could tell from the image before, but these griffins look every bit as much like griffins as the lions look like lions on the extant piece. Lion-esque, griffin-esque could easily be mistaken for, and that's partially just a product of the stenciling and how everything goes on. So the gilding is going to be last on this, but I wanted to give you an idea about what this is going to look like. And again, that's a side panel. And if we kind of turn it this way, I think that gives you a better idea of what that side panel is going to look like. So that's basically what we're shooting for. Okay. Now, caveats and disclaimers. One of the things I wanted to cover early on is, as far as block printing goes, there are many people who are far better at this than I am, including Her Excellency Morgan, who's joining us from Avical, who just recently got her laurel for exactly this. My take on this for this particular class is this is very much what I wish I knew about fabric stamping in the beginning, because I had been trying to do it and it was just not coming out right. And then I was up in Ontier and I saw Rifkin doing some of this, and I thought she was gonna, oh, she's on. Thanks, Misty. So I saw Rifkin doing this, and within 5 minutes, it pretty much fixed all the problems that I had. And so this is, like I said, very much the what I wish I knew, because it really is as easy as it looks. And I was making it way too difficult. And so I'm trying to spare some folks the hassles that I had so that everybody can do this, because it's a fabulous technique. And it just really, it's totally period. You can find references to this in the Cennini book, the Il Libro d'Arts, the book of the artist. Cennini, Cennini,
So
it's
after that,
Italian. So
we also went to this one that was called the Blue Feather.
Yeah, it was like this big.
oh. So anyway, there are references to it in the Cennini book, among others, but there are lots of references out there for block printing. And I'm going to go over the things that I've recently discovered that have made this a whole lot easier and accessible to me. So what we're looking at is, as far as stamps go, there are a number of ways that you can make stamps. Have a few here. Go back to the camera. Okay, so this is a stamp that we're going to be using today. This is a 3D printed stamp off the digital image that I had. Lord Ramon down in Eros Flight was kind enough to print these off for me. So that's one way you can do it, is with a 3D printer. I made this stamp, which is just a basic strawberry leaf stamp. I made this out of linoleum, preferably the soft cut linoleum. There are various types that you can get, but this is some of the gray soft cut, and you can see it's very, very flexible. It's really easy to cut. This is the tool that you can get on Amazon, or Michael's has like a lino cutting kit that you can start with. And so this is just it's just a little something to carve it out. And in the handle here, it has several different blades that you can work with, different sizes of blades to cut more or less out. So you can cut it on linoleum. When I do the lino, I'll put it on a just sheet of plywood, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch plywood. And depending on the shape of it, if it's just a basic outline shape, I'll just put a block of lino on there and then cut it out on the bandsaw to just do a basic outline shape. You can also do, this is one that is cut with the CNC router. This is from Rabbit Crafting. They do custom block prints. This is an image that Helga made the Scythian wolf for Nisa. We took the digital image and gave it to Rabbit Crafting, and they cut this out on a CNC. So there's a number of ways that you can get stamps and prints. And those are just a few of the ones that we have. A few different ways to do that. Is there any questions so far? Sweet, right on track. Okay, so with the printing, the basic concept here is we're going to take some paint and we're going to put it on the block, and then we're going to press the block onto the fabric to print that. I've got a couple of different types of paints that are here today. This is a jacquard fabric paint. This is available on Amazon. It's a pretty good fabric paint that already has the fabric medium in it. It's specifically designed to go on fabric. This is a speedball paint, which is the same kind of thing. This is a printing ink. It's also made for this. You can do this type of printing with basic acrylic paints, as you do with other just like hand-drawn printing. However, with the acrylic, if you're using acrylic paint, where'd it go? You definitely need to use textile medium, fabric medium. The reason for that is with the acrylic. So this textile medium, it thins it out a little bit, but it basically it allows the paint to adhere to the fibers of the fabric. Whereas if you're just using the acrylic paint without the fabric medium, it's just sitting on top of the fabric. And so when you put it through the washer, it's gonna flake right off. So if you're using regular acrylic paints, yeah, you want to use a textile medium with that. So one of the issues that I'd had early on was the consistency of the paint that I was using. Um, it was too thick and blotchy, and I was having some problems with when I put the paint on the block. When I press it on there, there's so much paint on there that it would just kind of smear out, and it would just end up really blotchy. And it turns out that that is largely a product of the thickness and the consistency of the paint. For example, I have this older thing of black printing ink, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's dried out a little bit, and so this is me turning it completely upside down, and the paint's not coming out. So that is way too thick. So what it can do, and we did this a little bit earlier with some of this. And what I did to get the right consistency, let me see. So I've got this other also speedball paint. This is just so it's a metallic gold paint. And I don't know if you can see that it's just got a better flow to it. It's actually moving a bit, right? So to thin out this other stuff, what I did, I had been trying, I tried water, I tried paint thinner, I tried any number of things to thin this out. And that is when Rifkin suggested to me that I use the textile medium to thin it out, because then you're doing two things at once, right? You're thinning it out and you're getting the consistency that you need, and you're putting more of that textile medium in there to get it to adhere to the fabric. So that was one of those little secrets that was just an absolute lifesaver to me this last summer. So consistency of the paint is a huge factor in getting this to lay right. One of the other things that I learned about at that same trip was, as far as applying the paint to the block, Rifkin also showed me these little things. So it's just a little dauber, and it's got a Velcro backing on it. So these little pads are pretty much disposable. When you get done with it, you can just throw it away. These are available on Amazon, and they're super cheap. What consistency of paint are you aiming for? Runny. I don't know. It's it's hard to describe. I mean, it's you want it to be able to pour, think by thinner than pudding, but more than water. Buttermilk. Yeah, I mean, you definitely want it to flow. Again, if I, where I have this black paint, when I was able to turn it upside down, I could shake that and that's not coming out. Whereas I have this gold paint, and again, you can see it. I don't know if you can see it. You can actually see it rolling in there. That's about the consistency that we're looking for. So yeah, Elmer's glue, that's about right. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, it's kind of a feel thing, but you just want it enough that it's I don't know, moving easily without like you say, you shouldn't have to like shake it to get it to move. It should pour fairly easily without running, if that makes sense. So yeah, we got these little daubers. There's a number of ways that you can apply the paint to the fabric, or to the block. This is a brayer, which you could also use. I don't really like this as much. I just found that it's just it doesn't apply even pressure to that. It just doesn't give as even a distribution of paint across the block.
And I like the fabric, the stamp pad, kind of belt pad sort of thing.
Yeah. Prax was just saying she's got kind of a stamp pad. I know Morgan does this as well, where she'll saturate the felt with the paint, and then you basically you press the stamp onto the felt pad, which is exactly what you're going to get if you were to get a ink pad at Michael's, for like scrapbooking and stuff, right? You got your little rubber stamps and you just, stamp it onto the ink pad and then you stamp it on. That's essentially what you're doing with that. That is definitely going to help, especially for large, if you're printing on yards and yards and yards of fabric, that is definitely going to be a factor that's going to help out. That's not something I've done before, so I didn't really want to cover that here, but it is an excellent solution, and I'm sure Morgan would be more than happy to enlighten folks on that process more if you'd like. So yeah, I'm using this, and again, this is kind of more for small batch sort of stuff, but it's working for me. And again, with what we're doing with these outfits, so we're talking about full under tunics for Timur and Tiana both. When I looked at, when I counted up the number of blocks that we have on just one of the side gores, and there's 4 of those side gores in total on each outfit. And on that one right there's 12 of these printings. So this is going to be, the printing isn't so much, but this is a lot of gold leaf. And again, I'll get to it later, but the gold leaf I got recently, I got 200 sheets of gold leaf off of Etsy for like $20. So that was a super score there. So anyway, and what we'll do is we'll take the paint, we'll kind of daub it on there, and then press it on. After it gets pressed on, you're going to need to heat set the paint. And heat setting, you can just do that with an iron. And I will take a scrap piece of linen and put it over the top of the paint, iron that down, and then I'll flip it over and iron it from the backside. And then I'll generally flip it over again and iron the top directly on. But when I first do it, I'm not going to iron on directly because the paint is still wet and it'll smear. So, but by the time I've put the linen over the top and then done it from the back, that's usually set enough to dry enough that I can go over it one more time and get a good heat set on there. It doesn't take much. I'm just doing that with an iron. And once you heat set that like that, it's golden for pretty much forever. But if you don't heat set it, it'll come out in the first wash for sure. Let's see. So one of the other things we're doing with this is you're gonna notice this black pad that I have under here. This is basically crafting foam. It's like what, 2 millimeter maybe crafting foam. I just got that at Michael's as well. When you're doing the print on here, you want to have a softer foam on the back there. If you have it too soft, then the print is going to get down into the fiber. So like close cell foam is almost too much. But this crafting foam, what it does is there's just enough give in it to give you a better even distribution of the paint on the block. If you do this on a hard surface, whatever surface you're doing that on is not necessarily going to be even. So it doesn't matter how much you press down on it, you're not getting an even distribution of your paint across the fabric. So by having the foam under it and having a little bit of give to it, that allows you to kind of press down into it so you can get good paint distribution across the whole thing. Hang on. Any questions about that? Okay, so before I get to the actual printing here, let me ask if there's any other questions that something else you want me to go over, or I can just get right to it. Dry iron. Yep. I don't know. Morgan says dry iron. I've used steam on mine because I usually with it being on linen, I have it on the highest setting and I just have water in my iron
Yeah,
anyway.
I do dry. I've never,
Okay.
steam scares me.
Oh, okay. I haven't had any problems with the steam iron, but the recommendation from the experts is dry iron. So I'll have to try that. Alrighty. So what I have here, like I said, we've already done the printing on the side gores. And so this piece that I have out here right now is one of the sleeves. Was that for me?
Yeah, he wrote it down.
Oh, nice.
We found that when we were printing, we had to actually like prime our stamp and do like 2 or 3 practice ones before it became consistent. And once it was primed, it would be beautiful. But we found that our first couple of prints would always have glitches that we didn't notice before.
I am definitely finding that as we've been doing this throughout the day, that the prints get better and they get more clear as we've gone about. So yeah, there's definitely something to that. And I think it's just a matter of as you put the paint on, the paint that gets left behind just kind of fills in some of the void spaces. But yeah, it's as we've gone on throughout the day, these are already starting to print better. So all right. So so what we're doing again, I got that that pattern where it's kind of a checkerboard pattern. And so I've got a spacer that I'm just cut out of poster board. That is the same size as the block. And once I get this on here, then I'll use that to give me my spacing. If you're really anal about how things are lined up, you can do chalk marks and line everything up. And but for what I'm doing, I am comfortable with just kind of spacing those out with the spacer. I'm pretty happy with how that's coming out so far. I've got a little bit of paint in there, but yeah, it should be good. All right. So I'm just taking a little dauber here and take some paint. And one of the nice things about using these little daubers is if you got a spot that has a little too much paint, you can just dab it on there and put it somewhere else. And I've just found that this is a method that just allows me to get a good even distribution.
And the fact that you can do it
paint.
on the fabric scares the crap out of me. Because I'm a mess.
Same. I'm like, ha.
And of course, one of the tricks with this is making sure that when you put the stamp on, you're putting it on the right direction. Now, Prax had mentioned that for her stamp, she marks like this way up, front towards enemy sort of thing. So you make sure that as you're putting it on there, that you're putting it on the right way. So I will definitely have to do some of that. So I'm just gonna drop that on there.
Do everything I can.
If you wanted to be super fancy, you could also make one print on paper and then glue that on the back of the stamp.
Oh, yeah. And there we go. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know. There you go. Just like that. So, yeah, and then I'll put my little spacer there. I'm more comfortable if I do it off of the side.
You can do it however you want. You saw me in my hands. I get things everywhere. So I don't dare put it on the fabric because you'll end up with the outline of your
I
block on
definitely
the fabric.
have a lot more paint on my ironing pad here than I had.
I like your eyeballing and spacer. It feels more true than, machine correct grid lines.
Well, and again, I mean, if you're super anxious about how those are all lined up, then yeah, by all means, you can mark them out with your chalk and all that. But for what I'm doing here, I'm pretty comfortable with just spacing them out, because once I get this first row done, you'll see I'll be able to just kind of line them up. Which way is that? There we go.
I know some folks said that it worked better if you'd like use a hammer and tap it. You don't seem to be having any problem with this, so I'm going to assume that you don't need that.
I haven't needed it yet.
I think it also depends on what stamp you're using, because with the thicker, heavier, big wooden ones, I have done that with a mallet. I wouldn't do it with a hammer, but I have done it with a rubber mallet. I've also done with really big ones where I've literally had my stamps on the floor and stood on them.
We've also done it with the roller that the Bristol that you were showing earlier to get that even pressure over the top of them.
Yeah, and I think with like the larger diameter blocks, you'd more likely need that, because that'll give you that. It's harder to get that even distribution. Oh, almost crooked as fuck.
I don't know, you're getting tons better results than I get with the 3D printed ones. So I think the dauber really does make a difference.
I love them. All right, so now that I got those spaces in there, you can see I can just kind of like fill in these other ones here. I'm just gonna do a few here. I'm not gonna do the entire sleeve, because you get the idea. Oops. Oh, hang on a second. And I'll just do one more.
I can stand for a while if you want to sit. Since I swiped the chair.
Oops. Oh. There's a space under the mats.
Yeah, I did that earlier,
Yeah.
which is why I took the paintbrush out and mixed it.
Oh. I don't know how well you can see this. Let me show you. So this one right here ended up with this line here, because I have these two mats there, and there was a gap right in the mat there, and so ended up with a little splotch in the line there. These things happen though, right? All right. All right, so that's the gist of the stamping part itself. Any questions about that?
I have one question.
Yes.
So it doesn't seem like you're simulating as if you cut this piece of fabric out of another piece of fabric that was fully stamped.
Right.
How does that look for the finished piece
Okay,
aesthetically?
so this one, that was definitely a choice, because like I said, you can do that where you print the entire fabric and then cut your garments out of what has already been printed.
That's a lot harder.
It can be a lot harder. So I've decided to do it this way because the gilding that we're doing on this. So the gold leaf that's going to go on here, I didn't want to gold leaf that much fabric and then cut all that out and leave it on the cutting room floor. So for this particular one, I've chosen to cut out all the pieces first and then do the printing. So like when I get down to like this area down here, as I start moving this down, what I'll do is as I print that, you can see how that part's there. I'm just gonna do that block and print it. I'm not gonna worry about whether or not there's, seam allowance or whatever, because that's how it would look if I had printed the whole thing and then cut it out. So I'm just gonna, as those go down the row there, it's gonna have that kind of look to it. Does that make sense? I will have to see if I can find that Etsy vendor there, Rifkin. Lachlan, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we know what, on the extant examples, do we have examples both of them looking like they'd been done out of whole cloth and out of individually stamped pieces as well?
So the one I showed you, to me, I mean, it's a remnant piece, so it's really hard to tell. But to me, that looks like it was.
But it's a mulham, so it's intended to be. And there's two fragments, one at Cleveland and one at the Met.
Right.
And so, but that's a little bit different. It depends on the piece. We have a variety throughout different points in time.
Yeah.
There's a children's tunic that's definitely, but it's also resist printed. So
Yeah. So that one appears to me that it would have been printed entirely and then cut out. But there are other examples of the gilding, for instance, where it was clearly it was the fabric was gilded after the pieces were cut out, because they were placed in. There's one. I'll have to see if I can pull it up, but there's another one that's it's a Arabic script that is gold leafed, and that was placed on a certain portion of the fabric. So that's something that they would have done as part of the design after the fact.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So when we're ironing this out to heat set it, definitely want to move the foam pads, because if you iron on the foam pads, you are going to melt them for sure. All right, fine, I'll turn off the steam. Sheesh.
I'm sorry, I'm nothing but a problem.
All right, so
I'm trying
and
to shut up and
you
just
can
be
see
good at it.
I do have a couple of little smudges here and there, but hopefully those won't show up too badly. So yeah, basically I'm just gonna take a spare piece of linen that I had. And just iron over the top of those. And again, with this being linen, I have it on the highest heat setting. So get some there, and you'll see too as I start pulling this off, you're gonna notice it's still kind of sticking to it a little bit. That's exactly why we put this over the top instead of just ironing straight on there, because all of that tackiness and stickiness is going to just
You can also wait a day or two.
stick right to your iron. Yeah, you could wait a day or two if you got that kind of time. And so yeah, I'm gonna iron it on the back to again heat set it from the backside as well. And the way I do this is probably excessive. Probably don't need to do heat set it quite this much, but in the past I've had some that I didn't heat set right, and the paint came off pretty much in the first wash. So if you get this done right, if you set this right, it'll stay stay pretty much forever. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's very basic stuff, very, you know, been able to hopefully shared some things that I didn't know about, that I had questions about, that have made this a whole lot easier for me, and hopefully it'll make it easier for you as well. So any questions about the block printing parts?
How do you gild it? That's the part that's interesting.
That's the next part. So I wanted to do the stamping part first, and then we're doing the gilding after that. So that's coming up next. So is there any questions about the block printing, fabric stamping stuff? If you heat set too much. Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you heat set too much, you waste your time. And if you heat set too little, you ruin your garment, which then wastes time, right? Right on. All right.
I have a
So-
question.
Yes.
Really quickly, where you had the gap and it didn't print quite right, can you touch that up
You can.
with like a paintbrush or something, or do
Yeah.
you just
Yeah, I've
not
been
fuss
doing
with
that
it?
all
And
day.
Yeah, Prax was saying
okay.
she's been doing that all day. In this case, I am not going to bother with that. I'm just going to leave it as is and just accept that that was a mistake and try not to do that again. Because we learn more from our failures than we do our successes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the gilding part, I'm going to go ahead and do it on this piece that I just did here. So gilding is basically gold leaf on fabric, which is very similar to gold leaf on paper for scroll work. You're going to put an adhesive down, and then that is going to bind the gold leaf to the fabric. So the glue that I use for this is this stuff here. It's Alane's. It's called OK to Wash It. I'm having a hard time finding this in stores right now. I'm gonna have to special order some from Michael's or get some on Amazon. I tried yesterday. I got several other glue types to try some other stuff to see if anything else would work. And basically what I found is accept no substitutes. This stuff is made specifically for this type of thing. I just have not found anything better. It's just becoming more and more difficult to find in the stores. So if you're going to be doing this, you're going to want to order it ahead of time. And again, it's called OK to Wash It. There's several of the Eileen's products out there. So just make sure it says it's the OK to Wash It. And it says for a permanent fabric bond. Like I said, this is absolutely the best stuff for this. Also, for reference, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but this process of gilding can be found in the Sanini book as well. And in that book, they actually have a recipe for hoof glue that they would have used to do this as well. I have not gone through the process of making the hoof glue yet. I don't know if I'm actually going to get to that, but it's something that's at least entertaining to me. I would be interested to see how hoof glue works for this as well. But yeah, this is in the Sanini book as well, the Elaborate Arts. If you don't have that, that is an absolute must. It's a period text written, I think, in the 15th century that you really should have just for general reference. So what I've done is, oh, that's the one I melted. So with this stamp that I made, so hot either. There's a number of ways you can get this, put the glue on there. So I have created this stencil, which shit, you can't see it. I'm gonna put that, no, can't see that either. Shit. I guess you can kind of see it. So I've taken the image of the griffin, and I sized it. I used the Cricut to cut this out. So if you're not familiar with the Cricut, it's a automatic cutting device that you can put in any digital image and it'll cut it out. The book name and full author spelling, Sanini. It can, there you go. Morgan's got a copy of it right there. It's the Craftsman Handbook, Sanini. It's available on Amazon. It's like $12 on Amazon, super cheap. You can probably put in the Book of the Artist in Amazon, and that should come up. So anyway, I cut this template out on the Cricut, so what I've done is, we have the block print here, and then I'm using this template that I'm going to put over the top of that to give me, so I can put the glue down on it. And so I'm basically putting the glue over the top of just the griffin. So that's internal to that. But yeah, Cricut is a powerful tool. And like I said, you can't really see that really is a griffin in there somewhere. So let's see, hang on just a second. Where's the paintbrush real quick? Also, as I'm doing this stuff, both the gilding and the paint, I'm gonna keep a bottle of acetone on hand to kind of clean up some of the glue. As we're doing the glue on the stencil itself, sometimes I'll go by and just kind of brush it off a little bit so you're not constantly making more buildup of glue on the stencil. I ended up breaking a couple of stencils yesterday, so I made like 9 of them that I just printed them all out on the Cricut. And the film that I'm using for this is specific to the Cricut. It's an acetate film. You can get it in the Cricut section of Joann's or Michael's or whatever.
And also just buy Mylar for cutting stencils.
Mylar as well. So there's a number of I mean, any kind of stencil type material you can use. When I first started doing this, I was cutting stencils out with like an X-Acto knife. Man, that is some bullshit. So if you, I mean, for anybody who's local, if you have an image that you want to cut out on a Cricut, I would be happy to do that for you.
I still think we should try putting it on the stamp and stamping the glue on, but that's me. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm lazy.
That's another thing you can do, and I've actually seen that done. You can take some of the glue and you can put it on a stamp, and you can actually do the gilding with stamp. You just put the glue on just like you would the paint, and then you can stamp that image on, and then you can gild over the top with that. One of the things about doing this though is with the gilding, you can really only do this as far as period fabrics go. You can only do this on linen or silk. It does not work on wool, because with the properties of wool, the fibers kind of stand up, and you're not getting the gold down into the fibers, and it's basically just sitting right on top of the fabric. And as soon as I mean, even if you don't wash it, I mean, it'll come off with the rain. So basically just wool or silk or linen, because again, just like with the paint, we're trying to get the gold in between the individual fibers. And that's something that this glue, the OK to wash it, does that some of the other glues don't, because the other glues would just like sit on top of the fabric. Or in one case, one of the ones that I used, another Aliens product, turns out that's water soluble. So as soon as I put it in the washer, it just came right off.
I can't believe you put gold in the washer.
I wash this all the time. The gold leaf.
Anything I stamp or embroider or whatever, I don't wash it in the washer.
Yeah, the fabric stamping, and that's the thing about this gilding. I've got outfits that I've done gilding on that are 10 years old that I've been washing from the beginning.
The 16th set, we don't wash anything.
Yeah, that's the thing is like this gold leaf will hold up in a washing machine, washer and dryer. So,
Or in the washing machine. There's the crap.
all right.
It depends on the
So,
garb. I have
I
some that
know.
I do, but it's
Fair enough.
a
Okay.
cotton linen blend, and it doesn't have
So,
any embellishments.
I got a little bit of A little bit of this Aleen's just
Here,
the
this
glue. That one
Glue in it, yeah.
newer-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a little bit, just a paint well, so I got a little bit in there. And so as we're applying this, let's see if we can get that a little bit closer. So you don't want the glue to saturate the fabric. This is a case of a little bit goes a long way. But you definitely need to have enough on there that the gold is gonna attach to it. So just put some on to make sure that you've got coverage, and then if you really need to, you can go back and put some more on. And honestly, this is the part of the whole process that takes the most amount of time, because you're trying to fill in all these little gaps and everything, and trying to make sure you have good coverage. Let me know if anybody's got any questions about this as I'm gluing this on here. One of the other things we need to be careful of as we're putting the glue on is, especially with things like, oh, I don't know, a griffin or a Pegasus or something else that has a lot of sharp pointy bits. There's a little bit of the stencil right here that is just up between the wing and the hind end there. I've got to kind of keep that down, because if I don't, the glue will get underneath the stencil. And then wherever that glue ends up, you're going to have gold on that. So if that bleeds out into areas that you don't want to be gilded, you're going to end up, it's going to be kind of splotchy. And that's what I was saying earlier, some of these with the delicacy of this particular stamp, these griffins, as they're coming off, look, they are griffin-esque. But like I said, they look as much like griffins as the extant lions look like lions. So I'm okay with that. And I've already got a little bit of a shift here on the bottom. You can't really see it, but there's a bit down here. I might see if I can adjust that. Oh yeah, that's better. Where it kind of slipped a little bit. And that's the thing. I'm doing the gilding over the top of a blank space. So I'm trying to match a stamp with this. And it's not ideal. Because really, if I was just putting this griffin over the top of just fabric and I wasn't trying to line it up with the rest of the stamp, then I could pretty much just put it anywhere and just, run the glue over it, and then, voila, it looks great. But, I'm trying to do what we can to kind of match this, because I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't really have a better way. I don't know if you can see that, but right there, I got a little bit of glue underneath that little bit right there. And that's going to happen. Again, especially the more delicate and the more curvy and the more detailed your template is going to be, the more likely you are to have, oh shit, did it again. That kind of smudging. But still, when it's, when it gets done, this is just one of those things that is just so striking. It's just it just pops, just jumps right off. As I'm sure Rifkin could tell you, because I made an outfit for her over the summer and I put a crown on there, and I think it looked pretty good. And one of the things that was done with this in period as well is you can do the gold leafing, and then you can do embellishments around the gold leafing. Like you can outline it with like a stem stitch or chain stitch or something to kind of to accent it even further. Yeah, I'm gonna have quite a bit of bleed over in this one, but it is what it is. All right, so once I've got that coverage on there as best I can, just gonna go ahead and peel that off. And again, it's really hard to see where all the glue is. I'm especially finding with a white glue in a white space, it's really hard to tell what kind of coverage I have. Okay, so the gold leaf that we're using for this, again, I will find the link for this. Apparently this comes from China. I got 200 sheets of this gold leaf, and they're about 3 inches by 3 inches. I got 200 sheets for $20, $25, something like that. So I will find a link for you on the Etsy to get that. With gold leaf, there are 2 types of gold leaf, and I thought I was getting the other type, but I didn't. So there's patent gold leaf, which is kind of stuck to the paper. So you can lay the paper directly on, and then you kind of have to scratch it off to get it there. That would be preferable, because with that you can rub off the parts that you need. But what I ended up with this is the loose leaf stuff. So, and this is like cotton candy, right? It'll just blows in the wind. So one of the things about putting this on is you want to do your best to make sure that you're not using your glue fingers to put that on. So, because if you touch that with your fingers that had glue on it, you're going to come off the gold fingers. So, y'all see that? So we're just going to drop that on there. And what I'm using to tap this in with is a bristle brush, like the flathead type bristle brush. You don't want to use a standard paintbrush, because what this does is this allows us to press the gold leaf down into the fibers, right? And when I put it on there, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap it straight down to get it onto where the glue is. Now, one of these sheets of gold can actually cover quite a bit. And you're going to see there's going to be a bit of this that flakes off. For the size of this that we're doing here, basically the size and the shape of it, it is going to take me 1 sheet of gold to do each one of these squares. In contrast, the crown that I did on Rifkin's tunic that I made this summer, that's a little more surface area, but I was able to do that entire crown with 1 sheet of gold leaf as well, because there's these spaces like over here in the margins. We've got this bit over here that isn't glued down to anything, so I can just pick that up and spread it to another area that needs it. But it's really hard to, it would be difficult to pull it up off of here and move that to another square over here. That's just, it honestly just ends up being much more work than it's worth. So as I tap this down to get it basically laid out onto the glue, what's going to start happening is as we do this, I'm going to start kind of doing some side strokes. And then you're going to see, like, there's a little paw coming out there. There's another paw coming up there. And there's the head coming up there. And then we got some wing spaces coming back up over here. And you can see, like, I got these couple of spaces here that may need a little more in the body there. And I can just kind of pick up some of that gold and drop it on there. But you can see the tail starting to take shape there over here. And I don't know how the reflection is working out on this. But yeah, we're going to push fairly generously into there with the brush, because again, we want to get it into the fiber. It's starting to look a little Griffin-esque, isn't it? Yeah, that looks good. I'm good at this. All right, and you can see the gold leaf ends up being like glitter, so I'm gonna go ahead and shake some of this off a little bit. As we all know, glitter is like herpes, man. It gets everywhere. So, let's go this way. That kind of look like a griffin? Kind of, sort of. There you go. So that is pretty much, it's pretty much it for that. So any questions on that? Let's see. You are pouncing the gold into the fabric. Yes. Yep. We're pressing the gold into the fabric with the brush, and that's why I like using the flat brush on there, because again you can get a more even press into that with that.
Jumping back a little bit on this, you said that this is a 3D printed stamp.
Yes.
Where did you get the 3D printed stamp from?
We had one of our local guys make it. So anybody that has a 3D printer, if you have a digital image of what you want, the 3D printing can do that. This one was made by his lordship Ramon de Javier down in Arrows Flight. He's one of our local folks here. He does some. He's done a couple of prints for me. So, but yeah, any 3D image or any SVG, any high graphic image. You can
Okay.
make,
Yeah,
make-
I know Fergus has gotten some stamps from Isabella and Giles.
Yeah. Are those 3D as well?
Yes.
And I know Talia Anella up in Ontier is doing 3D printing as well. Do you
Okay.
need to do anything to set? No. Nope, there's nothing. You just basically need to let it dry. You don't need to heat set this. That just once the glue's on there and the gold's on there, it gets down the fiber. You don't need to set the gold leaf. Is there an optimum time to let the glue reach its maximum tackiness? I don't know that there's an optimum time. I mean, you can see I pretty much put that glue right on there and then just put it on there. I had a sample piece yesterday that I had done. So this is what I did yesterday when I was doing some testing. This was kind of my control piece because this is with the okay to wash it stuff. And yeah, it's not the glue. I think it was just the coverage that I had. You can see down here in the legs how there's better adhesion, better cover down here. And then there's some spots in the body where it's not as good. And this is after it's been washed and run through the dryer as well. So it still holds on pretty good, but you can just see that I just had better coverage on some spots than I did on others. So we'll see what kind of coverage I have on this as far as the getting the glue into the fiber. So I mean, as with a lot of adhesives, there are the types where you want to put the glue on and then let it sit for a little bit to get that tackiness to get in there. I think the bigger issue becomes if you have too much glue on the fabric, then the gold's not getting it's not getting past the glue to get into the fibers. So that's where I was saying you kind of need to use the glue kind of somewhat sparingly. You don't want to saturate the fabric with the glue for that reason, because then it's the gold is just on the glue, but the glue doesn't really get down into the fabric, and so it's not really binding the gold into the fabric. Does that make sense? Let's see. I'm going through the questions in the comments here. Have I tried burnishing it with an agate bone, antler, etc. to help shine it?
Like you would if you were doing it on paper.
Oh. No, I haven't. That's interesting. I think just the bristle brush has generally been enough to get it into the fibers. And that's, you know, with it being a fairly stiffer brush, which I don't think it would work on paper if you're doing that on paper. But I think with this being a stiffer bristle, kind of allows it to kind of tap down into that a little bit. I've done the burnishing with agate or cloth. That's interesting. I haven't done that. I'll have to look into that. Morgan says it's not a huge difference. So
So this is Genevieve. I have a question. I tried to type it up before, but I think I got lost.
Sure.
I've never done this before at all.
okay.
And I'm curious because it seems like your linen is really stable. And I'm wondering, did you do anything to stabilize it with like a starch or is it a heavier linen? I just feel like if I put down a stencil and I lifted it up, it would lift up the fabric.
You mean for the stencil? So when I put the glue on with this, I did have to, like, you kind of have to hold the fabric down to peel that off a little bit. Which,
No, I'm back to first principles because I've never done this, even just with the stamp.
yeah, this is this linen is the fabric store linen, the medium IL-19 medium weight linen. I haven't done
Okay.
anything I haven't done any put starch or sizing in it or anything. In fact, I you know, it's pre-washed. But yeah, it's just the fabricstore.com medium weight linen. So I haven't really done anything in particular to
You
to
did
see-
iron it though, right, Your Grace?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I washed it. I wash it and put it through the dryer. And then iron it out. So
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
that was about it. So you might want to look at the weight of the linen that you're using. If you're using a lighter weight linen, you might have some issues. This is a medium weight. It's not a heavy weight. I don't know. Genevieve, are you familiar with fabricstore.com?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And-
Yeah, this is
and
the
Grayline and a bunch of others. So,
yeah,
so
this is
medium weight. Yeah, good to
the
know.
medium weight IL-19. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Any other questions? All right. All right. Well, that is pretty much it. That's what we're doing. I'm super excited about this. And again, I appreciate the help with Shonda and Prax down here helping me doing some stamping and some gilding. I think it's going to look totally bitchin' when it gets done. And again, this is for coronation for Timur and Tiana. So you'll get the big reveal come sometime in March. Middle of March, and you'll be able to see and I'm taking pictures of everything, so you'll be able to see the whole process there too. But I'm super excited about the way it's coming out, and so far I think it's coming out very much like I had envisioned based on the extant piece that I was looking at. So
You
All right.
are blogging it, right, Your Grace?
I'm recording this and I'm going to put it up on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I don't
Thank
do
you very much for taking the time to go through this.
I'm super happy to. It was something that another little shout out. I learned how to do the gilding from Mistress Mariana, Countess Mariana, who's currently down in the Outlands. Very good friend of mine. She showed me how to do this, and I've been gilding the fuck out of everything ever since. Because it's just a striking technique. I just love it. And having found that excellent example and being able to recreate something that we know existed in that particular period is something I'm just really excited about. And so far, this is absolutely matching the vision that I had for it. And that is always the best, when you have a vision for a thing and then you make it and it comes out just like the vision you had. So there we go. Alrighty, I'm gonna start recording right now. So